The auction hall was enormous, stretching higher than any human building Mara had ever seen. Lights of every color flashed across the walls, reflecting off the polished floors, and crowds of beings gathered to see rare and exotic creatures. Aliens of every shape and size milled about, their voices mixing in a cacophony that seemed almost musical, with clicks, hums, and roars filling the space. Human visitors were rare here, and the soldier felt every eye on him as he walked through the crowd. He was a veteran, tall, strong, and disciplined. His uniform was plain, without medals or showy decorations, but his posture and steady gaze carried the confidence of someone who had seen more battles than most could imagine. He had not come to bid. He had not come for profit. He had come because sometimes fate placed the right choice in front of you, and it was up to a person to take it. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the hall, sharp and commanding. Lot 472, a lone dragon with her 5 hatchlings. Recently rescued, weak but healthy. Don't underestimate their potential. The crowd stirred. Some laughed. Dragons were rare, yes, but these were small, thin, and tired. The mother dragon lay curled around her babies, their scales dull and wings folded tightly. Her eyes scanned the crowd with caution, smoke curling from her nostrils. The babies whimpered softly, tiny claws scrabbling against the platform. 5 hatchlings and 1 mother. The auctioneer continued, suitable for a collector with experience or someone daring enough to care for them. His tone carried amusement as he glanced at the crowd. Starting bid, 10,000 credits. Several bidders raised their paddles. The soldier watched quietly, studying the mother dragon. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent, filled with fear and yet with a hint of hope. The babies were huddled close, unsteady on their legs, their small heads twitching as they observed the crowd. The soldier stepped forward, quietly raising his hand. A murmur rippled through the audience. Humans rarely purchased such creatures, and when they did, it was often for experiments or profit. This human had no reputation here. Some aliens scoffed. Others simply shook their heads. The auctioneer's voice boomed. 10,000 credits. Do I hear 15? The soldier raised his bid. 15,000, he said, voice firm, calm, and clear. He had no intention of bargaining endlessly. This was not about winning a competition. It was about making a choice that he knew was right. Other bidders hesitated. Whispers spread across the hall. A human? For a tired dragon and her young, one alien whispered. Does he not understand the danger? Another hissed. The bid slowly climbed, yet none dared challenge him directly. Perhaps it was his presence. Perhaps it was the unshakable calm in his eyes. Finally, the auctioneer's hammer fell with a loud clang. Sold to the human soldier. A ripple of disbelief ran through the hall. Aliens muttered, some shaking their heads. Humans were clever, resourceful, but many assumed that a human could never care for creatures like dragons. The soldier ignored the whispers. He approached the platform, keeping his gaze on the mother dragon. She stiffened, wings spreading slightly as if ready to defend her babies. The soldier crouched slowly, making no sudden movements. It's okay, he said softly. I won't hurt you. I just want to help. The dragon sniffed the air, nostrils flaring, smoke curling gently. One of her babies crawled toward him, testing him cautiously. He held out a hand, fingers steady, and the baby tapped it lightly with its tiny claw. The soldier smiled. It was a small moment, but it told him everything he needed to know. Trust could be built, even in a hall full of strangers and strange beings. The handlers gently lifted the dragons, placing them in a specially designed transport cage. The mother hissed softly, but she did not resist. The soldier followed, keeping his eyes on her. I'll take care of you, he promised. All of you. As they walked through the hall, Mara noticed the stares from the crowd. Some were envious, some were skeptical, and some were genuinely impressed. The soldier ignored them all. He had chosen this path, and there was no turning back. He had seen fear, pain, and suffering in battle. He had saved lives before, and now he would save these dragons. The transport vehicle waited outside, sleek and reinforced, designed for alien creatures. The soldier loaded the cage carefully, making sure each baby dragon had space and that the mother could curl around them comfortably. He spoke softly as he worked. We'll get somewhere safe. No one will harm you there. You'll be able to rest." The dragons shifted slightly, some tilting their heads, others closing their eyes as if to understand his words. Mara watched him, silent but determined. His military training showed in his movements, efficient, precise, yet gentle. Even creatures so different from humans could sense the care behind his actions. As the vehicle lifted off, rising above the auction house and into the sky, the soldier glanced back at the crowd below. Some were still whispering, some still skeptical, but he did not care. What mattered was the dragons in the cage, the mother and her 5 babies. He had chosen compassion over convenience, care over profit, and that choice would define the days to come. The flight to their new home was quiet. The dragons settled as best they could, the mother curling protectively around her young. The soldier remained near them, watching, speaking softly, reassuring them with words and presence. He knew that earning their trust would take time, patience, and courage. But he also knew that this was his duty, and that humans, with their ingenuity and heart, could overcome fear and uncertainty. By the time the vehicle reached the secluded landing zone, Mara realized that the journey of trust had already begun. The auction hall, the crowd, the doubts, none of it mattered now. What mattered was the bond forming in that small transport cage between a human soldier and a dragon family, a bond that would grow into something extraordinary. The hatchling stirred, sniffing the air, and the mother's eyes met his. Mara felt a shiver of understanding. This was the beginning of something neither human nor dragon could have imagined, a story of courage, compassion, and the surprising power of human heart. The transport vehicle hummed softly as it lifted into the sky, carrying the human soldier, the mother dragon, and her 5 tiny hatchlings away from the auction house. Outside, the stars streaked past like silver threads as the ship sped through space. Inside, the cage was quiet, the dragons cautiously exploring their new surroundings. The mother lay curled around her young, eyes alert, watching the human with suspicion. The soldier remained close, kneeling beside the cage. "We're almost home," he said softly. His voice was calm, steady, and gentle. The mother tilted her head, nostrils flaring slightly, as if testing his intentions. The babies moved slowly, stepping over each other, tiny claws clicking on the metal floor. One of them bumped against the side of the cage and squeaked. The soldier smiled, reaching out his hand. "It's okay. You're safe now." For hours, the journey passed in quiet observation. The human watched the mother carefully, noting every flick of her tail, every twitch of her ears. He had faced dangerous enemies in battle, but this was different. He had to earn the trust of creatures who had no reason to trust him. Patience, he reminded himself, would be the key. The mother shifted slightly, allowing one of her babies to crawl toward the human. It tapped his hand lightly with a claw, and he gently stroked its tiny head. The hatchling shivered but didn't pull back. The soldier's heart warmed. This was the first step, a fragile thread of trust connecting human and dragon. Hours passed, and the ship entered a quieter sector of space. The soldier had chosen a remote planet as their destination, a place where the dragons could recover without interference. The planet was small but lush, with forests, rivers, and wide clearings, perfect for creatures who needed space to stretch and fly. When the ship landed, the human opened the cage slowly, letting the mother dragon step out first. She moved cautiously, muscles tensed, but her eyes never left him. The hatchlings followed, stumbling over each other as they explored the ground. The human stayed still, watching them, speaking softly. "Take your time. There's nothing to fear here." The mother sniffed the air and then nudged one of her babies gently, guiding them toward a clearing. The human followed at a careful distance, making sure not to appear threatening. He observed their movements, noting how the mother communicated silently with her young. It was remarkable. Every glance, every flick of the tail, carried meaning. As evening fell, the human set up a temporary shelter nearby, a small structure with supplies and warmth. He made sure there was food and water for the dragons, though he knew they would be wary of eating until they felt secure. The hatchlings huddled near their mother, occasionally venturing forward to sniff the human or the surroundings. During the night, the human sat near the shelter, keeping watch. The mother dragon slept lightly, one eye open and the babies nestled close. He reflected on how fragile this moment was, yet how much hope it carried. Humans could show courage, empathy, and patience, even in situations that seemed impossible. This was not a battlefield, but it required the same qualities he relied on for survival: focus, understanding, and respect. The next morning, the mother and her babies began to explore more boldly. The human knelt on the ground, letting one of the hatchlings climb onto his arm. He marveled at the tiny creature, feeling its heartbeat through its small body. "You're brave," he whispered. Smiling, the hatchling chirped softly, nuzzling his hand. The mother watched closely, her eyes softening just slightly. She tested him once more by nudging a baby toward him. The human caught it gently, holding it with care. The baby blinked, then reached out with a claw, touching his face lightly. The soldier laughed quietly, amazed at the trust forming so quickly. Days passed and the bond grew. The human learned to recognize the subtle signs of the mother's moods. A flick of her tail meant curiosity, a low rumble meant caution, and a gentle nudge meant approval. The hatchlings became playful, following him wherever he went, testing boundaries, and learning that he was not a threat. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant colors over the forest, the human sat on a rock, watching the mother and her babies play. One hatchling, braver than the rest, crawled up to him and chirped, a tiny sound that seemed almost like a word. The human's heart leapt. "You're learning trust," he said softly, stroking its head. The hatchling chirped again, nuzzling his hand. The mother dragon let out a soft, approving rumble. The human realized that they had accepted him, not just as a caretaker, but as someone they could rely on. This connection was extraordinary. Humans had survived wars, crossed planets, and faced countless dangers, yet the bond forming here, between species so different, was a testament to patience, courage, and heart. By the end of the journey, the dragons had settled. The mother allowed him near her babies freely, and the hatchlings had begun following him as they explored the clearing. The human knew that this was just the beginning of a deeper relationship, one built on trust, respect, and care. He looked out over the landscape, taking in the trees, rivers, and open spaces. "We're home," he said quietly, feeling a sense of peace he had not known in years. The mother nudged him gently, and one of the hatchlings climbed onto his shoulder, chirping softly. He smiled, realizing that this small act of compassion had grown into something far greater than he could have imagined. The journey home had not just brought the dragons to safety. It had begun the bond that would define their lives. A human soldier, a mother dragon, and her 5 babies have found trust, courage, and family in each other. And this was only the beginning. The sun rose slowly over the clearing, casting golden light across the trees and the small, cozy shelter the human soldier had set up. The mother dragon stretched her wings carefully, muscles tense at first, but gradually relaxing as she felt the safety of the area. Her babies were already exploring, stumbling over rocks and sniffing the grass with curiosity. The human knelt a short distance away, watching, speaking softly to them. "Good morning." Ready to explore? One hatchling, smaller than the rest but bolder, crept toward him. Its eyes were bright, curious, and intelligent, unlike any human could have imagined. The soldier held out a hand slowly, palm up. The tiny dragon sniffed, then tapped his hand lightly with a claw. He smiled, heart warming at the trust beginning to form. "That's it," he whispered. "You're safe here." The mother observed from nearby, her tail flicking cautiously, but she made no move to pull her babies away. Slowly, she began to allow the human closer, testing him with subtle movements. He understood instinctively. Patience, calmness, and gentle behavior were key. No sudden movements, no loud noises, no force, only respect and care. Over the next few days, the bond grew stronger. The hatchlings began to follow him as he moved about the clearing, chirping, tripping over each other, and sometimes huddling together in fear. He learned their small signals, the tilt of the head, a twitch of a claw, the soft hums and chirps they made. Every gesture was meaningful, and the human listened carefully, responding with words, touch, and presence. The bolder hatchling became his constant companion. Wherever he went, it followed, leaping onto his shoulder or wrapping its tiny tail round his arm. One morning, while he was arranging food and water for them. The hatchling looked up at him and let out a soft, high-pitched sound. It was not like a normal chirp. It almost sounded like a word. "Dad!" The human froze. His hand stopped mid-motion, and he blinked at the tiny creature. "Did you just call me Dad?" he asked quietly, hardly daring to believe it. The hatchling chirped again, as if confirming. The mother let out a low, approving rumble, her eyes softening as she watched him. The human felt a mix of shock, awe, and warm flood through him. He had not expected this, not in a million years. That moment changed everything. The connection between human and dragons deepened instantly. The other hatchlings began to explore more confidently, occasionally looking toward him for guidance. The mother seemed to relax fully, nudging him with her snout in subtle approval. It was as if the dragons were saying, "We trust you. You belong with us." The soldier spent hours each day with them, learning their ways and teaching them his. He showed them the clearing, the small shelter, the nearby river where they could drink and play safely. The dragons began to understand his movements and voice. They learned that he did not pose a threat, and that he would protect them. One afternoon, he took the bolder hatchling on his shoulder and walked through the clearing. The baby chirped excitedly, pointing with its tiny claw at flowers, rocks, and shadows. The mother followed behind, eyes scanning for danger, but showing growing trust. The human spoke softly. "You're learning fast. I'm proud of you." The hatchling chirped back, curling its tail around his neck. It was a small gesture, but the human felt it as deeply as any bond formed in years of battle. Even the other hatchlings began to interact with him more openly. They climbed onto his arms, sniffed his hands, and chirped with curiosity. The mother occasionally nudged him gently, teaching him that the human was now part of their family. She had chosen him as protector, guide, and companion. The human realized that this connection was unique, something no weapon, training, or battle experience could have prepared him for. Humans were resilient, intelligent, and capable of compassion in ways that often went unnoticed by others. Here, with dragons so alien and powerful, those qualities shone brightest. Trust, patience, empathy. These were human strengths that could create bonds across species, across worlds. As night fell, the dragons gathered near the shelter, the mother curling around her babies, and the bolder hatchling hopping onto the human's lap. He stroked its soft scales gently, whispering, "I'll always protect you, all of you." The mother lowered her head, brushing his hand with her snout, a sign of respect and acknowledgement. In that quiet moment, under the stars, the human soldier understood the true depth of the connection forming. It was more than protection. It was family. It was trust. It was love, in a form he had never imagined but had always been capable of giving. The days passed, filled with exploration, play, and learning. The hatchlings became bold and curious, the mother confident and relaxed, and the human fully accepted into their lives. The bond he had hoped for was no longer tentative. It was real, tangible, and heartwarming. One morning, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, the bold hatchling hopped onto his shoulder and chirped, "Dad," again, with more confidence this time. The human laughed softly, a sound full of pride and joy. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, that the dragons would need protection, guidance, and care. But he also knew that they had already accepted him as part of their family. Together, they were no longer just human and dragons. They were a team, a family, and this unexpected connection, born from patience, compassion, and courage, would carry them through whatever challenges the future held. The human soldier looked out over the clearing, the mother dragon and her babies by his side. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace and belonging. He had been a soldier, trained to fight and survive, but here he learned something greater, that humans could inspire trust, love, and loyalty, even in the hearts of dragons. And as the night sky sparkled above them, the small dragon nestled against his shoulder, he whispered softly, "We're together now, always." The mother let out a contented rumble, and the other hatchlings chirped softly, sealing the bond of an unexpected family that would grow stronger with each passing day. The morning was calm, the sun rising over the clearing, casting light across the trees and the small shelter the human soldier had built. The mother dragon stretched her wings, her eyes alert but relaxed. The hatchlings played around her, chirping and tumbling over one another. The human watched them closely, feeling proud of the bond they had formed. He had earned their trust. But he knew that the universe was not always kind, and danger could appear at any moment. As he prepared breakfast for the dragons, a sudden vibration ran through the ground. The air shifted, carrying a strange metallic scent. The soldier's hand went to the small blaster at his hip. Though he didn't raise it immediately, the hatchlings froze, their tiny bodies trembling. The mother hissed, wings spreading in a defensive stance. Something was coming. From the trees at the edge of the clearing, shadowy shapes emerged. Alien hunters, known for capturing rare creatures for profit, had tracked the dragon scent. Their ships were small but fast, and their weapons gleamed under sun. They had no concern for the dragon's safety. Their only goal was profit, and they saw the human as an obstacle. The soldier stood tall, placing himself between the dragons and the approaching hunters. "Stay close," he whispered to the mother, who lowered her head but stayed behind him. He knew that panic could cause them to scatter, making them more vulnerable. Calmness, precision, and courage would be essential. The hunters called out in alien tongues, demanding the dragons be handed over. They laughed at the human, assuming he could never fight against their technology. But he was prepared. Years of military training had taught him strategy, timing, and observation. He studied the terrain, noting the trees for cover and the slope of the land for advantage. One hunter raised a weapon, aiming directly at the dragons. The soldier acted quickly. He moved to block the line of fire, firing a series of well-aimed shots that disabled the aliens' targeting systems without harming the hunters. The mother dragon hissed and roared, her wings flaring as she stepped forward, her babies tumbling behind her in fear. The hunters advanced cautiously. They underestimated the human's courage, the mother's protective instinct, and the cleverness of the hatchlings. The soldier directed the dragons to safer positions, using hand signals and comm words. The bold hatchling, perched on his shoulder, chirped loudly, almost as if encouraging him. The mother dragon leapt forward, fire curling from her nostrils but carefully controlled to avoid harming the babies or the human. The hunters stumbled back, surprised by her precision and restraint. The human took advantage of their hesitation, moving swiftly, disarming one of the aliens with a well-timed strike, using both skill and environment to his advantage. The battle was intense but brief. The hunters, realizing they underestimated their opponents, retreated. The human did not pursue them. He focused on the dragons, checking each hatchling and the mother for injuries. There were none. The mother lowered her head, rubbing against him in gratitude, and the bold hatchling chirped from his shoulder, nuzzling his neck. After the danger passed, the human gathered the dragons in a safe spot within the clearing. He spoke softly, reassuring them, "You're safe now. No one will hurt you while I'm here." The mother curled around her babies, relaxed but still vigilant. The hatchlings played cautiously, testing the safety of their surroundings once more. That night, the human sat near the shelter, reflecting on the day's events. He had faced a threat that could have destroyed the fragile trust he had built. Instead, his courage, planning, and empathy had protected the dragons. He realized that humans had a unique strength, the ability to face fear with reason, to act with both heart and mind, and to inspire loyalty across species. The bold hatchling climbed onto his lap, chirping softly. The human stroked its head gently, whispering, "You see? Courage and care go together. We protect each other." The mother let out a low, approving rumble, and the other hatchlings nestled close, comforted by the presence of their protector. Over the next few days, the soldier took steps to fortify their clearing. He set up traps and alarms, simple but effective, to warn them of any approaching danger. The dragons adapted quickly, learning to respond to signals and follow his guidance. The mother began teaching the hatchlings small lessons in awareness and caution, while the human supplemented them with strategies of his own. Through this experience, the bond grew even stronger. The dragons learned to trust not only his protection, but also his judgment. The human learned to read their instincts more accurately, understanding when to intervene and when to let them act independently. Together, they became a team united by respect, care, and mutual courage. By the end of the week, The clearing was peaceful once more. The human sat with the dragons, watching the sunset. The mother's eyes met his, calm and approving. The bold hatchling chirped, curling against his shoulder. The other hatchlings played nearby, safe and happy. The soldier knew the universe was full of threats, but he also knew this. Human courage, combined with empathy and intelligence, could protect even the most vulnerable. And in that moment, surrounded by dragons who had once been strangers and were now family, he felt a quiet triumph, not of weapons or power, but of trust, connection, and the unshakable bond between human and dragon. As night fell, the stars twinkling above the clearing, the soldier whispered softly, "We face the world together. No one will take this family from me." The dragons responded in their own ways. The mother's low rumble, the hatchling's soft chirps, the bold hatchling nuzzling his neck. It was a small, simple chorus, but it carried the weight of loyalty, courage, and the extraordinary power of human heart. In that moment, the human soldier understood that protection was more than strength. It was patience, cleverness, and empathy, and it was these qualities that had earned him the trust, respect, and love of dragons, forging a bond that would last a lifetime. The sun rose over the clearing, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The human soldier sat on a large rock, watching the mother dragon stretch her wings and the hatchlings tumble over one another, chasing each other in playful circles. The bold hatchling clambered onto his shoulder, chirping happily, while the others explored the nearby trees and rocks. The human smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace he had not known in years. It had been weeks since the auction, weeks of learning, patience, and building trust. The dragons had grown stronger, more confident, and the bond between human and dragon had deepened into something extraordinary. The mother dragon had accepted him fully, curling around her babies near him and rubbing her snout gently against his hand. She no longer saw him as an outsider, but as part of her family. The human reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from the auction hall, where eyes full of doubt and judgment had followed him, to this peaceful clearing. He had relied on patience, courage, and understanding. He had learned that being human was not just about strength or skill in battle, but about empathy, resilience, and the ability to inspire trust even in creatures so different from oneself. The hatchlings chirped and tumbled, occasionally glancing at him as if seeking guidance or reassurance. The bold one, perched on his shoulder, nuzzled his cheek. "You're learning well," he whispered, stroking its tiny head. The hatchling chirped back, curling its tail around his neck. It was more than a simple gesture. It was a sign of recognition, trust, and affection. The mother dragon let out a low, approving rumble, her eyes soft and warm. She nudged one of the smaller hatchlings toward him. The human extended his hand, and the tiny dragon tapped it lightly with a claw, testing the connection. He smiled, realizing that every step of this journey had led to this moment. A family united across species, a bond forged through courage, patience, and compassion. Days passed peacefully. The human taught the hatchling simple skills: how to navigate the clearing safely, how to respond to danger, and how to play without harming one another. The mother dragon taught them instinctively, guiding them with subtle nudges, gentle roars, and protective movements. The family worked together seamlessly, each learning from the other, each trusting and respecting the other's strengths. One afternoon, as the sun hung low in the sky, a distant rumble echoed through the forest. The human tensed but did not panic. He had faced threats before and knew that fear could be dangerous. He stood tall, signaling to the dragons to stay close. The rumble grew louder, and soon alien scavengers appeared at the edge of the clearing. They had heard of rare dragons being protected by humans, and had come to capture them for profit. The mother hissed, spreading her wings to shield her babies, while the hatchlings huddled close to human. He raised his hand calmly. "Stay behind me," he whispered. He did not reach for his weapons immediately, understanding that courage and strategy were more powerful than brute force. The aliens laughed, assuming they would easily intimidate a lone human and a small group of young dragons. But the human acted swiftly. He guided the hatchlings into safe positions, moving with precision and care. The mother dragon responded to his cues, positioning herself to block the scavengers while keeping her young safe. The human used the terrain to his advantage, herding the aliens into traps he had prepared earlier. With careful moves, he disarmed them and forced their retreat without harming the dragons. The mother rumbled approvingly, curling around her babies once more. The bold hatchling chirped from his shoulder, nuzzling his neck. The other hatchlings chirped and tumbled near him, safe and unharmed. The human felt a surge of pride and gratitude. He had protected them, guided them, and they had responded with trust and loyalty. Together, they had faced danger and emerged stronger. Night fell, and the stars shone brightly over the clearing. The human sat among the dragons, the mother curling around him the babies. The bold hatchling perched on his shoulder. He realized that human courage was more than just fighting battles. It was about care, patience, and the ability to inspire trust. These qualities had forged a bond that crossed the boundaries of species. The human whispered softly, "We're family now. No matter what comes, we face it together." The mother lowered her head, brushing his hand with her snout. The hatchlings chirped in response, some climbing onto him, others nestling close to their mother. It was a chorus of trust, loyalty, and love. Days turned into weeks, and the bond deepened further. The human and the dragons learned from each other constantly. The hatchlings grew stronger, more agile, and more confident, guided by their mother and the steady presence of their human father. The clearing became their safe haven, a place where fear and danger could not penetrate. The human reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had come to the auction with no expectations beyond compassion, yet he had gained a family that transcended species, a bond built on courage, patience, and understanding. He realized that humans could achieve extraordinary things, not just through strength, but through heart. As the sun set, painting the sky in gold and violet, the human sat quietly among the dragons. The mother rested her head on his shoulder. The hatchlings curled around them, and the bold hatchling chirped softly, nuzzling him. For the first time in a long while, he felt complete. They had survived threats, built trust, and forged a family. He whispered again, softly but firmly, "We are together. Always." The mother rumbled in approval, and the hatchlings chirped in harmony. It was a small, simple sound, yet it carried the weight of loyalty, courage, and love. In that quiet clearing, far from the chaos of the universe, human courage had triumphed, not with weapons or force, but with heart. And in that moment, surrounded by dragons who had once been strangers or were now family, the human soldier understood something profound, that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to inspire trust, loyalty, and love, even in the most unlikely of allies. The family rested together under the stars, safe, united, and victorious, a living testament to the extraordinary power of human heart and courage.